first place Baltimore Orioles head off to Oakland and to San Francisco. Big week in the Bay Area. I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't make the trip, but all that being said, I will be down at the stadium on Thursday night for all things preseason football because we know how exciting it is. Not sure if Joe Flacco's even going to walk on the field or throw passes. Pretty sure Cam Newton's going to be on the bus coming into town, as will this guy. Mike Solarte covers all things sports in the Charlotte area. He is the sports director for Time Warner Cable News. And as we all know, the Panthers are big business down in the Carolinas, and we welcome Mike back onto the program, one of our defending champions. You can follow his journey on Twitter at Mike Solarte. That's Solarte. He is a Chicago native, so he even watched a little of the White Sox and the Orioles over the weekend. Mike, good to have you on, man. Welcome back in. Happy football season to you, man.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. I've been telling all my coworkers I feel like I just got off the plane from California in Super Bowl 50, and we're back at camp. So it's we're deep into camp, I should say. So it seems like the offseason just was a blink of an eye, but it is good to be back.
How was the Panthers offseason? I mean, I guess from the outside you look up and you say, well, your cornerback that was running around every chance he got to show up on ESPN and toot his horn and play some role of Richard Sherman of the East, is now gone. The quarterback who led you to 15-1 and sort of, wilted a little bit in the Super Bowl by anyone's estimation except his own, he's now back. I mean, I think everyone looks at this Panthers team and sees it as very, very capable, but they have as many question marks as anyone else heading into the season, right?
Yeah, I mean they do. They've got to try to figure out where they're going to get where their depth is going to be at running back. But I mean, a lot of this band is back together this coming season. I mean, they didn't lose. Sure, they lost Josh Norman, and the way that camp has gone. They're giving the three rookies that they drafted, in Chicago. They're giving them a lot of looks and a lot of reps with the ones. Benet Ben-Wickery is coming off the broken leg from last year in the Atlanta game, and so. He's trying, originally a lot of folks thought, well, if Norman leaves, Ben-Wickery can slot that left or right corner spot because Peanut Tillman's also retired. So those are two openings there. But, Ben-Wickery's a little bit behind because he was just taken off the PUP list, and he's just kind of, working his way in. So the cornerback situation is still kind of in flux at this point, and I would expect that we're going to see a lot of reps in game, in these preseason games. For the Worleys and the Bradburys and the Sanchez guy, those three guys that were drafted, and that's really I think the biggest question mark because the cornerback spot last year was very, very solid with Tillman being the veteran and Norman who after week 4 basically the field was cut in half for opposing offenses because no one threw at Norman's side, and so that I think is right now the biggest question mark that the Panthers have to kind of address and figure out.
Well, I guess everybody's got question marks this time of year, but more than anything for the Panthers, to say that the secondary's a little suspect, a little young, that's the part of having the powerful front seven, right? I mean, the idea is to not let the quarterback get rid of the ball.
Right, yeah. I mean, and the front seven remains as solid as can be. I mean, with Starlet Tulale and K'Wan Short at defensive tackle spots, Charles Johnson, Coney Ely on the edges, and that linebacking group, across those three positions, if they're not the best linebacking core in the NFL, they're in the top 3 with Kuechly Davis, A.J. Klein, Shaq Thompson. I mean, they put those 3 guys out there, and they can get sideline to sideline as well as anybody in the league. So, that front seven, if they can pin their ears back and make life uncomfortable for a quarterback, then you can kind of mask the youth in that secondary a little bit. And really it's only on the corners because at safety, Trey Boston is coming in, and it looks like Trey Boston might be asserting himself and becoming an every down player. Kurt Coleman is back after he got the extension. So, the safety positions are in pretty good hands. It's just those corners that they have to kind of bring along and get those guys going up to speed.
Mike Solarte, the sports director at Time Warner Cable News in Charlotte, North Carolina. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Mike Solarte. That's Solarte. One of our defending champions to get ready for this Thursday night matchup with Carolina Panthers. And, everyone wants to get to the Super Bowl, right, Mike, until you lose the Super Bowl. And, there's no worse feeling, and certainly the way they lost it and that they were in the game and had an opportunity, and certainly, a very, very, late December version of Peyton Manning, as we found. How was the offseason for them? And I know they've been incredibly embraced by the community down there. I mean, I saw the fan base out in the Bay Area. Obviously, there was great disappointment and high expectations, I get. 15-1, and for this offseason, pretty... it's tough coming back from that. I know Seattle throwing the interception last year. They kind of had a tough 8 months waiting for the next game so that they can sort of wash it away.
Yeah, but here's the thing I think that, and this may be just my completely varnished opinion on Super Bowl 50, was that Carolina won that game for about 59 minutes. And Denver made two monstrous plays. Von Miller made two monstrous plays that won Denver the football game because Peyton Manning was a non-factor, as you just mentioned. And, offensively, the Panthers moved the ball pretty well, but the turnovers, the strip sack for the touchdown in the early part of the game, and then the late sack fumble that led to the second touchdown for Denver, it wasn't like Peyton Manning marched the Broncos up and down the field. I mean, they had more 3-and-outs than I've seen in a long time. For a while, it looked like a no-hitter in baseball. But, I think Carolina's offense did well. I think their defense did well. I think Denver made the two biggest plays in the game, and that won them the football game. And, Ron Rivera is a guy that, really is quick to point out that you can look through the course of an entire game, and you'll find 4 or 5 plays that decide it. And those two plays made by Miller really decided that game because offensively Denver didn't really do much, and defensively they were good enough to bend and not break. And so I think the Panthers come off of that loss and look at it and say, we were beating the AFC champions up and down the field. They just got us in 2 key spots, and that's why we didn't get a ring. And that eats away at the guys that were on the field, and they don't want to be victimized by that again. They want to go through their business in the regular season, take it 1 week at a time, which is their approach, and they'll add them all up at the end of the year. And if it's good enough to get in the playoffs, then it's anybody's ball game. But this is a group, I think, that with all the players that were on that team last year and have come back this year, I think you're going to look at that group, and they are going to be very focused and fortified with the knowledge of, we were good enough to win that game. We just didn't get it done, but that's not to suggest we can't go back there and take it that last step and grab the trophy at the end of the night.
Mike, I am the Cam Newton critic around here. I'm just, I don't like the act so much in the whole Superman thing, and I know it plays to the kids, and the football's for the fans and for the kids in the stands. And, I watched it all unfold. I also was at the Super Bowl and predicted all week that if he didn't win, there would be some sort of meltdown, and there was no apology. Look, this is who he is. This is personality. I get it. And I think at some point the Panthers will win the Super Bowl. I'm just wondering what the bounce back will be this year with a tougher schedule, with a tougher division, and with more of a bullseye on him for the ones who dig the act and the ones who don't dig the act. Obviously, they were the best team in the NFL all year last year and came away without the piece of jewelry. That would seem to motivate a guy like Cam Newton. I fear an even more motivated Cam Newton, and I sort of get what he's about. I just look at it as like professional wrestling. Some people root for the good guys. Some people root for the bad guys. I root against Cam Newton. I just do. But that being said, I respect him. I just know it's going to be a little harder this year for them than it was last year.
Well, absolutely. I mean, no longer are they the team under the radar. It was funny because last year when they were 9-0 and 10-0, and they were the worst 10-0 team that's ever played in the NFL. The worst team that went 10-0 of all the previous 10-0s and whatever. I mean, all that fodder. It seemed to just really roll off those guys. They didn't really care about that kind of talk. They just kept going out there and doing their job. And a lot of folks say, well, maybe they really weren't that good, and maybe their schedule set up for them to be as successful and play as well as they did. But when they went through that gauntlet schedule of Seattle, Green Bay, Indianapolis, and there was one other in that 3-4 week, or Dallas in that 4-week stretch there. And they came out of that, unbeaten. People started to take notice and say, wait a minute, these guys might be pretty good. I don't think anybody that has a brain in their head is not expecting this team to put up 16 wins in the regular season. Because it's just so very, very hard.
And that's the only way it could be better than last year, right? It's hard to improve on 15-1. You set the bar kind of high,
And I think, all the Panthers really want to do, and it doesn't matter how many wins it takes, they just want to win the division. If they win the division, they're in the playoffs, and then it's game on. They're not setting their sights on 16-0. Sure, they'd like to win them all, but they found out firsthand, and as I said, much of this team is returning from last year. They know that 16-0 is very, very hard to do. And I just think that these guys are coming in with the mindset of, win this Sunday, then try to win the next Sunday, and so on and so on and so on. Add them up, and where they stand is where they stand. And if they get in the playoffs, which is the obvious goal, then they try to turn up the wick a little bit. I just with this football team, they've really taken on the personality of Ron Rivera, and I think I've been saying this since Rivera got to Charlotte on day one, that he's a guy that was the right fit for this football team because he's got the right temperament, he's got the right mindset, the right ability to deal with the personalities in the room, and there are personalities. You talked about being an anti-Cam guy. Ron Rivera has got Cam Newton in a place where Cam Newton is as comfortable in his offense and as comfortable in his own skin as any team could want their leader to be. And Cam is polarizing. I get that. I get why folks love him. I get why folks hate him. But the one thing that you cannot say about Cam Newton is that he does not work hard. He might be the hardest working guy on that football team, even though he probably has more ability than anybody else on that football team. And he's not going to just mail it in. This guy is in the film room. Last year he helped install the offense in camp, and they've given him additional responsibilities to make the offense his. And I'm sure that those responsibilities have even increased because Cam wants it that way. Cam wants to be the guy that is not looked at as Cam Newton, Superman, star of the team. He wants to be looked at as Cam Newton, the quarterback that leads the football team. He wants those responsibilities, and that's the kind of guy he is. And for all the stuff that turns people off on the field, there's so many things off the field that he does that he's absolutely incredible. He really is absolutely incredible with the way he handles himself in the community and handles himself with the kids and doing all the things that you want your lead singer to be in your group. And he's definitely the guy that wears that lead singer suit well.
Speaking of lead singers in the band, we got Steve Smith here trying to get back into the band and get back on the field. And I know everybody down there has a great affinity for him. And when he was injured, I wouldn't bet. I've known Steve almost 15 years. I wouldn't bet $1 against him catching 28 passes this year or 35. I don't know that he's going to catch 80 passes. I don't even know if he's going to get back on the field. But I would not bet against him at this point.
Oh, no. Anybody that's bet against Steve Smith to do anything in life is going to come up on the wrong end of that bet. Because I've known Steve since he got to Carolina when he was drafted out of Utah, and he and I are pretty decent friends. And I hated to see his press conference last year where he said this was going to be his last year, and then he got hurt, and I'm like, yeah, he got hurt. That's not going to be his last year. So if he can find a way on the football field,
we all sort of thought that, didn't we? We all saw when he went down. We thought, this retirement's kind of short-lived because there's no way this is the way he's going to roll.
No, he's too much of a warrior to lay his shield down getting hurt. I mean, if the only way you're going to get him to have him walk away from it after getting hurt is if the doctors say you can no longer play this game. That's the only way. And he can still play. He's still got tread on his tires, and more than the tread on his tires, he's just got that will to compete. And you've seen it in the short time he's been there.
Sure.
We saw it each and every day when he was on the field in Carolina that he was the ultimate competitor. And still is. I shouldn't say in the past tense because he is, and I agree with you. I think he's going to be back on the field.
Mike Solarte, sports director at Time Warner Cable News down at Charlotte, North Carolina, with the Panthers coming up on Thursday. All right, last thing for you, Mike. Who's the second best team in that division?
That's a really good question. I kind of thought Tampa was going in the right direction with Lovie Smith, and then they whacked him. Atlanta has still got Matt Ryan at quarterback, and Matt Ryan is certainly on the back nine of his career. And New Orleans with Drew Brees, that's a really good question because I just don't know.
Talk about the back nine. I mean, he's he got 1 foot in the clubhouse.
Well, he might. I like Matt Ryan. I think he's a decent QB, and I think he's a decent human being. But I just don't know that he's the guy that's going to lead that team for very much longer. If I had to pick, I guess I'd have to pick New Orleans. Because Breeze, I think, but hey, Tampa, you can't overlook Tampa with Jameis Winston and the way that he's gone. He's got good receivers. They've given him some more weapons. I'd have to say either Tampa Bay or New Orleans.
It is lopsided, though, right? I mean, when you have to try to figure out who's second best and whether the Panthers need to win 11, 12, 13, 14 games to win the division, I don't think anyone could conceive any of the other three teams winning the division, right?
Yeah, I think as we stand now, I think so. But it depends on how guys take to the coaching in camp and how they take to the system. And there's so many unknowns. Because, in reality, we're still so very, very early in camp in the overall picture. So, teams aren't set right now. I think with the exception of Carolina, who probably only have maybe 4 or 5 jobs open when you look at it, maybe just slightly more, maybe 7. But, and those aren't even starting jobs. It's just one of those things where you just have to kind of see how teams, mold together and come together over the course of the next couple of weeks before they set their final, 53 and then see how it all plays out. I think as we stand now, though, I would have to say it's probably Tampa or New Orleans that probably has the best chance to give the Panthers a run. But even then, and again, it's still very early. Even then, they're going to have to make some big leaps because last year nobody really had an answer for Carolina in that division.
So you're a Chicago native, and I know you're a big White Sox fan. We've talked about this before, and my family heritage on the South Side and the Elotes at Comiskey and all that stuff. Are you the Sox fan really rooting against the Cubs? Because I have a real feeling that most of America is going to hate the Cubs by October 15th.
I'm not rooting against the Cubs. I'm certainly not rooting for them, though. And remember, having been born there and watching all those years of futility, this is shaping up to be one of those put the Cub fans on suicide watch if it goes bad in the playoffs. Because look, right now they're pretty darn good. They're pretty untouchable. But they get in the playoffs and they get knocked out. Oh man, it is going to be they're going to run out of libations to ease the pain of a lot of Northside fans. And it would be so Cubs for them to do that.
Oh, it's very Cubs, right? That's the beauty of all of this.
Right?
And I've told every Cubs fan I have, and I'm not a taunter, but I spent enough time in Chicago, specifically living in Northbrook, to know plenty of the bleeding heart Cubbies fans to say you better win game 1. That's all. That's really what it comes down to because things move very, very quickly in October if you lose game 1.
Oh, absolutely, totally.
Especially because it will be at home, right? Fundamentally, you know that much, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. You're exactly right. If they drop a series opener, there are going to be some nervous Nellies in the North Side. And I'm not, like I say, I'm not rooting against the Cubs. I'm certainly not rooting for them. But again, if they do, if good times go bad and they don't snap the 108-year drought that they since winning a World Series. It's amazing. They haven't been to a World Series in my lifetime, let alone won one. They haven't been to one. And they certainly haven't won one, in any of our lifetimes. I dare say there are very few Cub fans that are still alive from the last time that they won a World Series. And even then, they might have been, a month old at the time.
They're on a Smucker's jar somewhere, right? Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where if they win it, it'd be a great story, and we can finally put it to bed. But Cub fans would be insufferable if they won it.
I already saw a Cleveland parade once this year. You know what I mean? There might be another Cleveland parade for crying out loud. One miracle a year is plenty for me. Hey, Mike, great having you on, man. Enjoy your journey up here. Don't eat your tourist crab cakes while you're up here, and we'll be watching the Panthers all year long. Appreciate your time.
Anytime, man. Thanks for calling.
You got it. Mike Solarte down in Charlotte, covering all things Panthers and a little NBA and some NASCAR as well as the sports director of Time Warner Cable News down in Charlotte, North Carolina. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Mike Solarte. That's Solarte. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn radio app. We come in crystal clear from wherever you are, even in South Carolina, Spartanburg. We come in down there. You can also get our morning newspaper delivered to your email inbox free of charge each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. You can learn more and get a little inspiration this summer at Planet of Triumphs. Great website out there with some great heartwarming stories about getting in shape. It is summertime and it's still $10 a month. No better place to do that than Planet Fitness. Last but never least, while the Orioles are keeping you up late at night all week out on the West Coast, the breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home and getting you ready for the Panthers and the Ravens. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me anytime, anywhere. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, our Facebook Live videos. Our WNSTV channel is alive on YouTube as well. We are full service. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.